Well, guys, if you guys want to keep up with the latest things on the TPT podcast, make sure you guys go check out my Discord, the TPT Podcast Universe. We have anything from movies, food talk, TV shows to all types of sports, not just the NFL, but NBA, NHL, college football, and college basketball. We talk about it all, and including the NBA as well. So make sure you guys go check out my Discord. The link is in the comment section. You guys go click the link or in the description. It'll take you right to my Discord. Make sure you guys go check out the TPT Universe.
65 toss power trap. That might pop wide open, Rats.
Welcome in, everybody, to the TPT podcast. We got a big-time guest with us here today, my man, Lawrence Smith. How are you doing, man? It's good to have you on the podcast. We're eager to talk some Chiefs football and some NFL in general.
Appreciate it. Lifelong fan, trying to get more into the sports world. Been making content. I've reached out with you in the past, so hopefully you can get a good show on.
Yes, sir. Of course, we got our Kansas City Chiefs. They are in the Super Bowl. What has it been like? Something that the last couple times we haven't had too many Chiefs fans on the podcast, but you're a pretty big Chiefs fan. We talk about this a lot, when we're on TikTok live with each other, is you're going from the years where it was, if you made the playoffs, it was a big deal. But talk a little bit about how special it is, the success the Chiefs have had the last couple of years and what it just means for Kansas City and Chiefs fans in general.
Well, you got to look at also like the ages of most of the Chiefs fans, right? Like myself, I'm 20 years old. So when I started watching football, it was primarily around 2010 is when I started, about 8 years.
Same.
So, those are the Matt Castle years. So literally when we first got introduced to Chiefs football, it was poverty. I mean, our franchise was terrible. We had a player literally commit suicide, like at the facilities, it was like that bad. So, there was no good coaching. I mean, we had guys here and there, but I can't remember the head coach that we had at the time that ended up going to the Texans. But
Romeo Crennel.
Yeah. And then, but once Andy Reid joined, you could just feel the tides turn. Right, we knew what he did in Philly. I thought it was premature for them to fire him the way he did. Philadelphia kind of has a reputation of firing coaches after Super Bowls, but here nor there. But he got Alex Smith. The first thing he did was went out and got that premier quarterback to be able to turn the franchise around. And, we grew up on Tamba Ali, Justin Houston, Jamal Charles, Dwayne Bowe. But, all their careers just felt kind of wasted in Kansas City. And that's how it's kind of felt when you look throughout, the history of our team is Christian Okoye, especially Derek Thomas, Eric Berry, another guy that you can put in there, Priest Holmes, Marcus Allen. It just felt like we were wasting a lot of great careers. But now finally we're having at least a team that, that success that should have been happening is now really starting to get there. Because you got to remember, for like 20 years or 25 years, we didn't win a home playoff game. I mean, now it's the Arrowhead Invitation. So when you look at it, the tides have definitely changed. We have the premier guy of this league. We have the face of the NFL. That's kind of good and bad. Everyone calls us bandwagons because, I mean, when you're a fan of the number one team, people are going to assume that you've never been a part of them and that you're just following them because they do win. But it's special because when you consider the nostalgia factor, I have no nostalgia factor of Kansas City winning. Literally, it was just us being terrible. So this is the first time in my life, these last really 7 years is when we started really our dominance. When the AFC, when we started winning the division, and even at that point, you even knew with Alex Smith, we had a great team, but he wasn't going to be the guy to get us over that hump. That was the big issue with Alex Smith, is because we had Tyreek Hill, we had Travis Kelce, we had, even Jamal Charles at one point. Obviously, Mahomes never had Jamal Charles, but you could feel that Alex Smith was more of a game manager, and he was great. He was great to turn around our franchise, but we needed that guy that was going to uplift us to the next stage. Who's going to put us on that almost dynasty possibility? And when we drafted Mahomes, I was like kind of struck out of nowhere because I was like, that came out of left field. A guy, traded up for him, Patrick Mahomes. And I would have thought we would have traded up for Deshaun Watson, if anybody, especially in
Right.
that
So did
draft.
I.
Going back, looking at that draft, and to pick Mahomes, it was kind of out of the blue, but I mean, it ended up working great. Andy Reid's a quarterback whisperer, of sorts.
Right.
There's only a few coaches that can really put themselves in that category. So his development isn't shocking to me, but for him to become the solidified number one guy, multiple time MVP winner, get us to multiple Super Bowls, there was points in my life, especially with the Royals, the Chiefs, where I was like, man, am I ever going to see these teams in a World Series or a Super Bowl? I mean, like I might see it once or twice in my life, and I've seen it 3 times in 4 years. So
Exactly.
It's the locker room's changed, the whole organization's changed. The fans really haven't. I mean, the fans have been loyal the whole entire time, especially when you have fans that are, myself, I was raised in Kansas, so like this is through and through here.
Yeah, I mean, Arrowhead, a lot. Again, we get a lot of people, especially when we're doing our thing in sports media or we're going live talking about the Chiefs. They try to say, "Yo, you guys didn't start like the Chiefs till 2018, or those Chiefs fans weren't there in 2018." I mean, they broke the loudest stadium record in 2014. Way before Mahomes even got there. So like you said, the fans have always been there. And you brought up another good point is Andy Reid. We're gonna get more into him later on as the show goes on, but Andy Reid is facing his former team in the Philadelphia Eagles. And like you said, I think the season he got fired in 2012, 2012 was a disaster. Michael Vick got hurt. They were a pretty beat up team then, but he was winning. All he did was bring them to 4 consecutive AFC championships and then 5 total in Philadelphia. And they kind of just, one bad season, they just got rid of him. Do you think he's out for revenge this season?
No. I think if this would have been like a couple years afterwards, but honestly, we're a decade removed from that. I don't see why we would consider this a revenge year. Now it's a good storyline. People are going to make it no matter what, right? Nick Sirianni coached for the Chiefs. You could say the same thing for him, right? So either or, you could say it's a revenge game for both of them, but I think they're so far removed from being a part of these squads. This isn't like Doug Peterson. If Doug Peterson went with Jacksonville this year with Philly, his first full year coaching, that would have been a revenge game. But this, no, not really.
Yeah, I mean, you have Andy Reid, and I can see what you're saying, because again, if this would have been a couple years ago, because he's 3-0 versus the Philadelphia Eagles already. So these are part of Andy that definitely wants to get back at his old team for sure. My dog thinks so in the background, but this is going to be an interesting game for the Chiefs. You got Jalen Hurts and you got Patrick Mahomes. Talk about those quarterbacks.
When it comes to Patrick Mahomes, we know what we're looking at, right? There's no question mark there. He's the number one guy, 2-time. He's going to be the 2-time MVP. Maybe by the time this comes out, he might already be. But but with Jalen Hurts, let's remember this is a fan base for Philadelphia that wanted to get rid of him possibly last year. A lot of fans were calling for him to, be moved on from, or that he was on the hot seat. And he came out and proved everybody wrong. I think ever since his years at Oklahoma, he's gotten better and better as a passer every year. But I still think the question mark, similar to Lamar Jackson, is, can he beat you truthfully with his arm? Is he that guy when it comes to throwing the ball? Now, what Philadelphia did great for Jalen Hurts, as Baltimore hasn't done for Lamar, is got him a number one guy. And not only did they get him one number one guy, they got him 2. Right. And let's not forget Dallas Goedert, right? Dallas Goedert goes under the radar for him. That offensive line, this whole offensive scheme's built around him. This is a perfect situation, especially with his rookie deal being a 2nd-round pick. So it's even less. I think it's like 1.6 million. So he's taking advantage of the opportunity, right? Because everyone talks about how that rookie deal is the time to really go out there and get it done. And not all guys are going to do it, right? Because only 2 teams play in the Super Bowl every year, regardless of how many great quarterbacks there are. So when you look at Jalen Hurts, I think he's the bigger question mark here, right? Because I know going into the Super Bowl, people are talking about whether or not that shoulder is truthfully 100%. You have some people that say no, some people that say yes, right? His passing numbers during the playoffs haven't been that great. Then again, they've been running all over teams. And that's the one part of the offense that really scares me about being a Chiefs fan is, can we stop that run game? Because you've mentioned it yourself. It even paused Fred Warner when they run that option, right? Because you have to respect Jalen Hurts' legs, right? And Jalen Hurts is insanely strong. I think he squats like something like 600 pounds. Like the guy,
600 pounds.
the guy's a load. Okay, so he's not. It's not even his quickness. It's more he can run you over and he can juke around you. I mean, not too many guys can really say that, especially at his size. But I think, especially with AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, that helps him on the passing game. But I still think the Chiefs' blueprint is very similar to beat Jalen Hurts as it was Jimmy Garoppolo a couple of years against the 49ers. It's to force him to pass the ball and rely on him to make the mistake, right? Because we know that run game is lethal, right? They could control the tempo, they could control the clock, but when it comes to his arm, sometimes you gotta just pick something and you gotta live and die by that. And I think the Chiefs' idea is make him throw the ball. If he beats us that way, well, then hats off to you. We're probably gonna lose. But at that, they could say the same thing about our passing game for the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. We got to get the ball out of Patrick Mahomes' hand. Let's force them to run the ball, right? Let's drop 7 guys back. Let's drop 8 guys back. Let's make them run the ball, force them to hand it off to Pacheco, hand it off to McKinnon. So I think it's weird because you look at this game and it's almost totally inversed, right? For the Eagles, right, you want the ball out of Mahomes' hands, but if you're the Chiefs, you want the ball in Hurts' hands, unless it's obviously in Patrick Mahomes. That's a given. But the game plan is totally the opposite for both teams, and I think that speaks volumes to Patrick Mahomes. I think that shows how lethal Mahomes is, and I think Jalen Hurts, I don't think he ever has the capability of passing Mahomes. I don't see him ever having that kind of let alone talent or the production. I know people were saying that he had it this year. But if we're being honest, when it comes to the passing game, there's no one better than Mahomes. It's the part that gives Jalen Hurts even that ability to be in the conversation is his legs. And again, with guys like Cam Newton, guys like Lamar, guys like Josh Allen, he has a shelf life with playing quarterback this way. It's just right, the God's honest truth. You're going to have a shelf life. Running quarterbacks, which he is in that category of a running quarterback. Now, I think he's closer to a mobile quarterback than he is a running quarterback.
Like a dual threat. Yes.
Yeah, he's closer to a dual threat, right? I wouldn't say like Randall Cunningham or Donovan McNabb, being that those are Philly players, but it's kind of similar to where they can run. I don't know if McNabb might not necessarily be the best example there, but
yeah, I mean, McNabb was, he would run if he could, 300-400 yards a season, but it wasn't like where the athleticism of Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, and with Jalen Hurts, that's what's keeping him in the race to be able to keep up with Mahomes is the fact that he does have the dual ability. But when I define a running quarterback, does he run the ball more than 6-7 times a game? Jalen Hurts does. So I classify him as a running quarterback because of that. And I think the closest person we could probably say is like maybe a guy like Russell Wilson, during that Seattle time is probably a good matchup.
Yeah. And that's what makes Jalen Hurts. I mean, we have, of course, the NFL awards tonight, which we'll get some of your picks later on in the show. But Jalen Hurts, if you look at some of his numbers since the injury, he has not been running the ball as much. And we talked about this off air is a lot of the teams that have a good run game. And the last time someone ran the ball effectively versus the Chiefs was the Raiders. And that was on a Monday night game at week 5 or 6. Since then, you haven't had a team really go over 100+ yards running them. I know that P. Ryan had a pretty good game the first time they played the Bengals, but again, it was, 70, 80 yards, and he had, great yards per carry. Do you think that teams get away from the run game against the Chiefs because they look at their defense and some of these quarterbacks and coordinators say, oh my God, there's 6 rookies on the defense. We're going to expose their linebackers. We're going to expose, they're not rookies, but they're second-year players, but we're going to expose their linebackers and their secondary because majority of them are rookies.
And I'm not going to sit here and compare Jimmy Garoppolo to Jalen Hurts, but I'm going to say the same thing for that Super Bowl, right? What the Chiefs wanted to do was force Garoppolo to throw the ball. And the reason why they wanted to do that is because they knew the 49ers feared Mahomes. That's why teams like to pass the ball, because they want to get a big lead. They don't want to give this guy a chance to catch up, which they're actually doing the inverse of that. They're stopping the clock. They're slowing down the tempo. So they're actually doing the inverse of what they mean to do. Against the 49ers, we would have lost that Super Bowl if they would have kept running the ball instead of passing it the way they did. And I think that's what teams ended up doing. And we have a track record in the playoffs of the defense stepping up against run heavy teams. Just remember a couple of years ago against Derrick Henry, when he was just buzzsawing through the Patriots, the Ravens, we held him for I think it was 70 yards, right? 60, 70 yards.
I think it was maybe that total, but on the ground, I think he only had 23 yards.
I think he had more than that, but yeah, we totally stifled him.
He didn't do
game.
much.
So could that be partially because he was so worn down? I think it was partially because of our game plan, right? Frank Clark stepped up to the challenge. I believe Saunders, Noddy, Chris Jones, as a pass rusher, Chris Jones is elite. Him on run defense actually kind of is suspect from time to time. I've noticed he kind of gives up on plays. But Karlaftis, I can't remember the other rookie's name off the top of my head for some reason. He looks like Karlaftis.
Leo Chanel.
Yeah. And Juan Thornhill, can come up and make a bang. Justin Reed, they're good run stopping safeties.
And that's the thing about their secondary is a lot of these rookies and a lot of corners, they don't like tackling. Our corners are not afraid to go and make a play and tackle. I mean, very, very effective tackling. And you even said, Brian Cook, he does some rookie type things sometimes to get some penalties, but he's played well in the absence of, and of course, Snead. Can't forget about Snead. Snead is such a great player.
So, yeah. And also people forget about Nick Bolton. I hear a lot of people talk about how the Chiefs, the only thing they have better is a better tight end and a better quarterback. Well, I think we have the best defensive player right now between the two teams, and that's Chris Jones. I know people are going to say Hassan Reddick. No, it's Chris Jones. Okay, Chris Jones is miles ahead of anybody right now, because I think Aaron Donald's finally taken that step back, or at least he was injured this year. But when you look at numbers this year, Chris Jones is in a league of his own, and then Nick Bolton's the better middle linebacker from the two teams. He's the best middle linebacker.
And you can argue Willie Gay as well.
And because Nick Bolton's leading tackler, both years for the Chiefs, and I think this year he's up there with one of the top in the league. And I remember some crazy stat last year. If he would have played every single game to the amount of snaps he had, in the second half of the year, he would have had something like 200 tackles. Obviously, that's not going to actually happen, but it was some astronomical number that almost seemed made up, like a Wilt Chamberlain number for basketball. I mean, so when people talk about the Chiefs, and why teams play the way they do against the Chiefs, is because our defense knows when to turn it up and when to, flip that switch. And teams are simply scared of Mahomes. That's why teams play the way they do against us.
Right. And Snead this year, he was 2 tackles away from breaking the record for tackles for a corner. And a lot of the times, I think because our offense is so well, and in the regular season is a game by game, you'll see a Chiefs defense where you're like, oh my gosh, what is going on? Then the next game, it's like, oh man, we held one of the best offenses to 20 points. And I think the Chiefs at times, again, because their offense is so high-powered, that their defense does get some shade. But shout out Spagnuolo. The highest, points I think a team has scored in us in the playoffs was Houston Texans, and the Chiefs came back in that game. But that was because it was more on the offense, giving up the ball twice. One of the times was on the 1-yard line. And that was 24 points. I think the Bucks had 28 in the Super Bowl, but again, the Chiefs were punting the ball like crazy. So he's probably averaging around 21 to 23 points a game as a defensive coordinator in the playoffs.
And to go back on that, you talk about the Houston Texans game. That's literally the prime example of teams being afraid of Mahomes. They were up 24-0 or 24-7, and they ran a fake punt. The only reason you do that, right? And obviously, honestly, fire the whole coaching staff, fire the whole everybody, right? You're up by 3 touchdowns or more, and you're running a fake punt in a playoff game. That's what gave the Chiefs life, because Dirty Dan Sorensen makes that tackle against, I think it was Justin Reed, actually, funny enough.
Yeah, I know.
If
I
I'm
know it was
correct.
Dan Sorensen. I can't remember who was on the other side of that play.
I want to say Justin Reed was the
I
one
want to say it was
running the
Justin
fake
Reed.
punt.
Justin
So
Reed was 20, right?
yes.
Yeah, so it was Justin Reed.
So full circle moment right there.
Yeah.
But it's funny because you talk about, the original question. I believe your original question was, why do teams play the way they do against the Chiefs?
Right.
And it's because they truthfully do fear the comeback factor, right? Even, because you look at the numbers for the Chiefs, even when we're behind, we're statistically better than if we're ahead. So
And you're absolutely right. They are.
you're in between a rock and a hard place, right? Nick Wright talks about this all the time. I mean, Mahomes, I think, has like a 75% win rate when he's down by 10 going into the fourth quarter or something crazy like that. And like that, I think the next closest person's at like 40%. I mean, I don't want to get those numbers, so don't quote me on those numbers, right? So
Right.
Anybody
But
watching
it
that,
is around there, though. That
it's
statistically, the
crazy.
Chiefs are better, more likely to win a game when they're down by 10.
Yeah, down by 10, 7, going into the fourth quarter. Anything
Right.
you want to name off there. I mean, when you don't want to be behind because, I mean, just common sense says that you don't want to be behind in a game, but you also don't want to be ahead. You almost want to be like the Bengals. You want to be right even, and you want to score as the clock hits 0. That's what you want to do. That's how you want to beat this team.
Yeah. And before we move on to our next segment here, I mean, the Philadelphia Eagles, and I think that's the key to this Super Bowl. And of course, we'll get our final predictions at the end. But if the Chiefs get up on the Eagles and then they have to get out of their run game, I think they're going to be in trouble because, again, you talked about the Eagles and what separates Mahomes from Hurts. Well, it's the throwing of the ball. And Hurts is not a terrible, like, he's not where it's like this guy can't throw and he's not a great thrower. He is a great thrower. But if they make the Philadelphia Eagles in obvious passing downs, they gave up plenty of more sacks from a defensive standpoint. They gave up 44 sacks in the regular season to the Chiefs 29. So that's the difference between the offensive line. We obviously know how good the Eagles offensive line is because they're maulers in the trenches when they're running the ball. I mean, I don't know if I've seen a better team when they run the ball from the offensive line standpoint. Yeah, their tackles every now and then can give up sacks for their team. Like I just mentioned, now they have 49 sacks total. And I think as Chiefs fans, we can be a little bit hard on Orlando Brown and Wiley, even though they haven't had the best years. But for the most part, they've kept Patrick Mahomes clean. What do you think some of the things they have to do to try to limit this pass rush for the Eagles? Because they had 70 sacks. And then my second part of that question is, do you think their numbers are a little inflated from the teams they played? They can't control the teams they played, but do you think their numbers are a little inflated?
So this is one of the hardest arguments to make, right? They're NFL teams, they're NFL players out there. So at the end of the day, how much can you really discredit them, right? Because it could have been a good offensive lineman with a coverage sack, right? So at the end of the day, that goes on the lineman, that goes on the offensive line, but that goes for like the sack numbers of Hassan Reddick or who else is on that line. But really it was a coverage sack. Maybe it's an RPO. Maybe it's, a bobble, a misread play. I mean, you never know, right? So to say that it's because of the lower level competition, it's hard for me to say whether or not, because I'd have to go back and look at every single play that, this happened on,
right,
and everything like that. So some ways that the Chiefs are going to have to slow down this pass rush and to really make it to where it's not a huge factor to this game, because it's going to be a big factor no matter what. One, when Wiley's on the probably on Hassan Reddick, because that's probably what they're going to do. They're going to put Hassan Reddick on Wiley. They're going to have him try to speed rush from around that right corner and force Mahomes left, so he has to plant off his bad foot right on the throws, and they're probably going to bait him into it, right? So they're probably going to do some sort of QB contain on the left side, on Orlando Brown's side, and pretty much just force Mahomes to have to run left or have to step up, right? So either way, what I would do if I was them is almost something similar to what the Bengals were doing, is put like Gray or Bell, one of our backup tight ends, on the other side of like McKinnon or Pacheco, have Pacheco or McKinnon on the left and have one of our backup tight ends on the right. You can even have Kelsey,
right,
and then chip Hassan Reddick and give Mahomes that chance to roll out right. Because at the end of the day, that's what Wiley needs to do, is he needs to force Hassan Reddick to use inside moves so Mahomes can get on the outside. Now, obviously, there's some times they can probably run stunts to try to bait the Chiefs right into a sack, which they're probably going to end up doing or do slide protections where you're going to move the whole protection right and pretty much just almost like a play action, except you're just rolling out, right? Just
Right.
immediately go to a rollout. Pretty much any way to not let Mahomes get forced left, because at the end of the day, that high ankle sprain is not going to be 100% come the Super Bowl. I don't care if they hit him with a cortisone shot. I don't care if they hit him with the act of God. I mean, nothing's going to make that not hurt at the end of the day or make him 100%. Now, I think he's going to play just fine. I don't see it being a huge factor unless someone does another power bomb like a WWE move on his leg again, like that Jacksonville edge rusher. I don't remember if it was Josh Allen or not for Jacksonville who did it, but anyway, that's here nor there. But for the Chiefs, it's definitely going to be not letting Mahomes get ran out to the left all game.
Yeah, and that's something. I mean, Wiley, he's a good tackle. He's not the best tackle with the Chiefs have had the last couple of years, of course, because they had a guy like Mitch Schwartz. I would pay anything to get him healthy and back in playing shape and on that offensive line at that spot, because good Lord, I think the Chiefs would be in crazy shape if they had a guy like that. And he is going to be the weak spot of that offensive line. But again, that's where McKinnon comes in, because we all seen the highlights of him lighting dudes up in the pass protection. So I think that's some of the ways that they can block for the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. We're going to move on to our next segment here. But before we do, make sure you guys check out our sponsor, My Business, Jaden's Jerseys. All you guys got to do is go to Instagram, type in Jaden_jerseys, and make sure you guys go check that out. We got all sorts of gear at Jaden's Jerseys, hats, jackets, jerseys, everything you need to look great for the Super Bowl and for the upcoming baseball season and for the NBA season, of course, because those are coming up. Everybody, welcome back. We're here with my man. He's going to talk a little bit about some of the QB carousel that's going to go on in the off season. We're going to get our final game predictions for this Super Bowl. And then we're going to get into something fun on our last guest with Mike Tazi. We had our top 3 favorite bowls. So we got to get your top 3 favorite bowls and then your go-to for the Super Bowl. So before we get into that, the off season's coming, and it comes up pretty fast after the Super Bowl. I feel like it's like 2 or 3 weeks, and then a new league starts, and all of a sudden it's like breaking news. This guy's over here, and this guy's over here. So I'm going to name you some names, and you tell me where you see these guys in the uniform playing next season. So the first guy I'll start out with is Aaron Rodgers. Where's 2 or 3 teams you could see Aaron Rodgers going?
Well, one, I hear the number one is the Raiders. Makes no sense to me, right? No defense. All they have is Devontae Adams. I've heard Darren Waller's on the trading block. That really makes no sense to me. And even if he does stay, he's always injured. Hunter Renfrow is a good slot receiver. Josh Jacobs, I think, is pretty much out of there. I don't think Josh Jacobs is going to return.
He's gone.
That offensive line is, mid at best, and if not, bottom 20. So that team really doesn't make sense to me, including the competition against the Chiefs, the Chargers. Sean Payton just got there with the Broncos. So, you could see the Broncos having a big turnaround year. So right now, as of, looking at that team, they're fighting for third at best, if not fourth.
I agree.
Right. So people saying the Raiders, does it make sense? Kind of. Devontae Adams is literally the only reason. The second team would have to be the Jets, right? They hired Nathaniel Hackett pretty much as a ploy to try to get Aaron Rodgers. Now, I don't know why anyone will want to hire Nathaniel Hackett after the season he just had. That was asinine to me, but whatever, I digress. The Jets team is perfect, right? You got weapons, a good offensive line, a stout defense, right? So that whole team is set up for him to win. And then the third team, which again, for cap reasons and just, I think he already said that he doesn't want to, but the 49ers, I know he has stated that he doesn't want to go to the 49ers.
Yeah, he said he doesn't want it.
Aaron Rodgers is known to lie. So I'm not totally sold on him not wanting to go to a team that's stacked on both sides of the ball. So other than that, that's the 3 teams I'd have for that. But I think the Jets is the best fit. I think the 49ers would be the best situation. And then I think the Raiders would just be stupid.
Yeah, the Jets to me, I think is the perfect fit for him. Big city, can move on. He's kind of following the Brett Favre path. I don't think he would go to the Vikings after that, but he's kind of following that Brett Favre path. And they have good receivers. They got 2 good running backs there. They got a pretty good offensive line, great defense. I mean, it's similar to the team he has in Green Bay. They just have more weapons on offense at the moment. So I think the Jets would be a great fit for him. Another quarterback that could be moving on would be a guy like Lamar Jackson. Where do you see Lamar Jackson? What's the best fit for Lamar?
See, this is kind of difficult, right? Because if Tua decides to retire from health, that changes the entire game of this, right? So one, I'm going to base this off of Tua's health. If let's say Tua does retire, let's go in a little magical world here and say that he does, and we can control this alternate universe, right?
Right.
Tua
The
retires.
NFL.
Miami is the perfect situation, right? You got speed on speed on speed. I mean, speed kills. We all know this. And put Lamar with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. I don't know what you do as a defense, right? You're literally going against track team at every single position. And I've heard Josh Jacobs might be going there also. So literally you have no weaknesses on that team. Another spot for Lamar I thought would be great would be the Colts. And I know a lot of people are actually going to kind of disagree with that, but I think Michael Pittman is a lower number 1 guy, high number 2 guy. I think Jack Doyle's still at tight end for them. They have Jonathan Taylor. That offensive line, when they have a somewhat mobile quarterback, has proven to be a top 5 line in the league. The coaching situation with Jeff Saturday does kind of scare me. Their defense, they have some great players on defense. DeForest Buckner, Leonard. I don't remember I think he wants to be called Shaquille Leonard now. But anyway.
Yeah, Shaq Leonard. I don't know.
And then the third option would be the Jets. The Jets would have to be, or I think, Miami, the Colts, and then the Jets.
Jets, yep.
So the Jets would be perfect, right? Stacked on both sides of the ball. Garrett Wilson's the number 1 option, something that he's never had. And then, that whole team is just loaded from top to bottom. Breece Hall will be coming back. So there's your run game with Lamar Jackson. Big city, he'll get paid. So I think those are the 3 teams best for him.
Yeah, I like honestly, I like the Colts idea. They have been rumored to maybe bring in a guy like Eric Bieniemy at the OC position. The head coaching position is a little bit scarce. So maybe they can pull something out of their ass and bring in a guy like Hardball. You never know if he gets a quarterback like that. Perfect situation. He used to play for the Colts. He was, honestly, outside of Peyton Manning, one of the better Colts quarterbacks in the last 30 years. So you never know, that could happen. I think that would be good for him, a guy who's played the quarterback position. Any team in the NFC South, I think, is just the money would come into the aspect if the Bucs could pay him, or if the Saints, the Panthers too. So any one of those teams, because that division is,
terrible.
Terrible.
Yeah,
I don't know who
the Falcons. The Falcons are another team.
Falcons,
you said
Atlanta.
Name 3 teams, so I just kind of went.
Yeah.
Falcons would be the 4th option.
And again, I think we talked about this. I would love to see Lamar in Atlanta because it would just remind me of Michael Vick being there. If he could just wear number 7, that would be perfect, because it would make me feel like I was 7 years old again, watching Michael Vick just roll around and crack people's ankles and just be thinking like, oh, that's easy. I could do that. And then realizing I'm 20 years old. No, it's not that easy. That was just Michael Vick. So I would love to see Lamar Jackson there in the NFC South, because I just think they need quarterbacks. And we need some quarterbacks in the NFC. We need some, because we talked about Aaron Rodgers leaving. We're going to be, if that's the case, again, we're in this alternate NFL. If all of a sudden Aaron Rodgers goes to the AFC, we're left with Dak and Jalen Hurts. The NFC,
that's sad.
It's going to be pretty brutal. There's going to be good teams, but it's not ideal. And no disrespect to Kirk Cousins too, but that's literally what we're going to be saying is, who's the best quarterback outside of Jalen Hurts? Is it Cousins or Dak? Which, my goodness. And then last one for you here is Derek Carr. What's a good landing spot for Derek Carr? I know we just brought up the NFC South. Do you think that's an option?
NFC South wise, it would be the Panthers, right? I've heard the Panthers get the Carolina Panthers be throwing their names in there. It doesn't really make sense to me at the end of the day. I think Derek Carr is going to want to go somewhere where he's more in a win now mode, especially at his age, being past 30. I think he's 32 right now, maybe 33. I've heard another name out there with the Colts. Similar situation for, everything I said about Lamar. I think it's all applies also to Derek Carr. He's not nearly as mobile as Lamar Jackson, obviously, but he is more mobile than that of Matt Ryan. So he could very similar to Carson Wentz in that aspect. And that's when that offensive line flourished was with Carson Wentz. And then the best team, and I think undoubtedly the best fit for Derek Carr is the Commanders. Right now, in order for the Commanders to pull this off, I think they need to somehow get rid of Carson Wentz's contract and be able to move on from Sam Howell.
Yeah, they've named him the starter in the offseason, which I don't get.
I don't understand that move. But if Derek Carr's there, think about it. He has Terry McLaurin. He has, running back by committee, a good offense. That defense, that front seven for the defense feels like they're all number one overall picks. But the defense all around is stacked on offense. After Terry McLaurin, Robinson at running back, and then Curtis Samuel. That's who I was trying to remember. But they got weapons.
Logan Thompson.
Yeah, so that team feels like the best fit. I just don't know if they're willing to put that much down at the quarterback position because they've kind of put themselves in a bad position with Carson Wentz there.
Right. And, you brought up the Colts as well. Do the Colts want to stray away from these kind of just veteran they've went for the last couple of years? Or are they, do we go after rookie quarterbacks? Because speaking of rookie quarterbacks, there's a lot of options at QB this offseason. We just named all the free agent QBs, and now, there's some of the rookie QBs. If you're the Chicago Bears, are you trading away your pick? Are you trading down because you know that you're probably not going to take a quarterback and some of the other guys you can get if you trade down to 5 or 6?
So if I was actually the Chicago Bears, I have a weird take on this. I think they should actually trade down twice. I think they should trade down once to either probably Seattle or the Colts. And then they need to trade.
Would that be?
4 or 5. Colts at 4, Seattle at 5. Seattle can then get their trade up, get their quarterback of the future, and either bridge him with Geno Smith or just completely get rid of Geno Smith in general. They have free reign at that option. And then next, I think they should trade down to pick 10 with Philadelphia. I think Philadelphia would want that. They would want that better capital. I don't think it would take all that much either for them. They could probably use that later first round pick and then give that also to the Bears, or they could trade to like number 9, 11, 12, and just accumulate as much capital as they can, because as of right now, that whole team is really struggling in multiple areas, right? And I think no matter what, when you look at a draft, you'd rather have 7, 10 chances than 3 to 5. Just give yourself more and more chances in earlier rounds to be able to hit on somebody, right? Try to get a number 1 receiver, try to get some better offensive linemen, try to get some, defensive backs, try to just get some guys that you can develop and get as many of them as you can, right? Because you'd rather have a problem with having too many than none at all.
Yeah, and I definitely think that'd be the better option for the Bears, because Justin Fields, it's too, I think, early. I'm never big on Ohio State quarterbacks. I know they got Stroud in there. I've never been big on, some of the Alabama quarterbacks that come out. But right now we got 2 coming out. You're a GM. You're sitting there. You got to pick a quarterback. What's the quarterback you're going with for the next 10 years? Bryce Young, or is it CJ Stroud?
I'm not high on any quarterback in this draft class, if I'm being honest. Anthony Richardson, Will Levis, Bryce Young, CJ Stroud. I'm not high on any of them, honestly. And I think the best one, give me Bryce Young, I guess. I think the guy that everyone wants is in next year's draft class, and that's Caleb Williams. That's who I think is going to be the best out of everybody, because biggest arm, better build, very similar to Mahomes' play style. So I'm not going to put that kind of pressure on him, obviously. But someone's going to get baited into this, CJ Stroud or Bryce Young at number 1, number 2. And obviously, it's the quarterback position. It's going to get taken high overall. I'm not high on either one of these guys. CJ Stroud kind of flurries away in the big moment. And Bryce Young, it's not that he's too small. I don't necessarily see injury issues. I don't know. Is he closer to Jalen Hurts? No, I don't. I don't. I don't see Drew Brees in him. I don't see Tua in him. I don't see Jalen Hurts in him. I just don't know what to think of him. CJ Stroud, he can't really run, right? He doesn't fear anybody, make anyone fear the run game with him. He doesn't, his arm, he has a big arm, but is it really to the caliber of what you need on a team that's not going to be good, that he's probably going to go to start out with anyways? He's probably not going to have a number one receiver. When you're at Ohio State and you have Marvin Harrison Jr., I mean, is Harrison Jr. making him look that much better than what he really is? I mean, I know he puts up big numbers. They also wouldn't get the cupcake schedule. So it's hard to determine that. And then someone's going to get fleeced into taking Will Levis. That guy's not good. I don't, and people could sit here and say, well, you never played college football. That's fine. I've played with guys that have went D1. I've talked with former NFL players. I've met some personally. I've spoken with them. You have as well. You've had him on this channel. Will Levis is not good. Will Levis is not good. Who he reminds me of? I've said this before, Mitchell Trubisky, and I think
right.
Best case scenario, Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones was picked 6th. Even at the time, he was not worth that, right? Like, he wasn't worth the 6th overall pick. He was at best maybe a 2nd rounder, but because he's a quarterback, they're going to pick him top 10. Same thing is going to happen with Will Levis. Same thing might happen with Anthony Richardson from Florida, although I don't think he'll be picked top 10. But either way, no. I mean, even if they do turn out to be great quarterbacks, regardless, their value is not nearly that. They're not going to come out. They're not going to be a first round type talent for at least a year or two.
Yeah. And I especially agree that statement with a guy like Anthony Richardson and Will Levis. I think if they do get drafted to a team, they need to sit for a year. I like Anthony Richardson because we've seen his ability. His ability can be like a Cam Newton.
Yes.
But I don't know if he has the tread on the tires. He played a little bit the season before for Florida, came in for a couple of games. And then this season, he was the starter, but he's really only played one full season in college, kind of like Mitchell Trubisky did. And Will Levis, I mean, what did he really do? I mean, I guess it's Kentucky. And if you
I've heard that he had a good sophomore and junior year. So in that, his senior year, he was kind of hurt a little bit. He was kind of this, kind of that. Regardless, I don't see it, right? I'm seeing people talk about him like looking like a Josh Allen kind of thing. I know nobody saw Josh Allen kind of coming out of the woodworks the way he did, but if you give Will Levis a top 5 receiver in the NFL, does he take that jump? I'd hope so. Any quarterback should take that jump with a top 5 receiver.
Right.
But, you see guys like Kirk Cousins, Dak Prescott, they can have a top 5 receiver in the game, but you never really have faith in them, right?
They're not going to win the big one.
Are you ever going to be able to do that with Will Levis? I hope he proves me wrong. By all means, please prove me wrong. But I don't think he will.
Yeah, and so you would say Bryce Young. You're not loving the pick. I'm not, a big fan of taking either Alabama or Ohio State's quarterbacks for some of the reasons you named. Bryce Young, it was a little bit different this year with Alabama. They did not have quite the talent they usually do. But you look at a guy like Mac Jones. Mac Jones could throw a 2-yard screen pass and it's going 90 yards to the house. And then they say, oh, my God, look what Mac Jones did. Well, exactly. He kind of had one of the best receivers in the world. And that's kind of how it is with C.J. Stroud. So I always pump the brakes with Ohio State quarterbacks or with Alabama quarterbacks. The last best Ohio State quarterback in the league was Troy Smith, and he was a backup quarterback for 6 years. So, and then, Mac Jones or maybe 2. I know people like to claim Jalen Hurts. As a Sooners fan, I'm telling these Bama fans, get out of here. You guys had nothing. You didn't want anything to do with him after Tua came in.
No, so, I think it's, if he were to get enshrined in the Hall of Fame, he would go in as a Oklahoma. But I think Alabama fans can claim him to an extent for sure.
I don't know, man.
He did go to. I know it was rough, right? But at the same time, I mean, he did take them the national championship. He brought them back into games. They had faith in him. It's just, when he did get benched that time in the national championship, it was the better move. Honestly, it was the best move. And both Tua and Jalen Hurts have turned out to be just fine. So I think it's like a 60-40. I'd say 60%
I would
Oklahoma,
say so,
40%
but
Alabama.
I don't know, because it's like, if the Sooners claimed Troy Aikman, and how we talk about Troy Aikman on the lives and how we get into him. I mean, he played 3 or 4 years at Oklahoma. He was the starter for the national championship at OU for a little bit, but he went on to UCLA. But he did. I will say, Alabama fans, he ended up graduating from Alabama. But hey, he finished with Lincoln Riley and the Sooners. Speaking of Troy Aikman and some of these other guys, before we get out of here, let's talk a little bit about Mahomes and what it means real quick if he wins this Super Bowl. Look, we already know tonight in about an hour he's going to win the MVP. He's going to. He's going to win MVP.
It's whether or not he's
MVPs.
unanimous. It's whether or not he's unanimous at this point.
I agree. So he's going to win 2 MVPs. And we'll go back into the NFL universe. Say he wins the Super Bowl. Where do you put Mahomes? We talked a little bit about this. Where do you put Mahomes on an all-time ranking with the 2 Super Bowls and the 2 MVPs?
So assuming he wins another Super Bowl MVP.
Yeah, assuming he wins this Super Bowl on Sunday.
And the Super Bowl MVP with that.
Yes.
I would say he's 5, right? And I think there's a good argument to be made that he's already number 5. I know a lot of people are not going to like that because of his career numbers, which I do agree with to an extent, right? He's only been a starter for 5 years. So I can understand where the argument comes in, but he's been in the league for 5 years, but his worst season has been losing in the AFC Championship, and that's been twice, right? So
overtime, both times.
You
hit it right on the nails. The worst season Mahomes ever had is either losing in the AFC Championship in overtime.
And he's always had the first seed. So it's always been the Arrowhead Invitational. So that means he's dominating the regular season. He's dominating the postseason. He's going to the Super Bowl. I think if you watch that game against the Buccaneers, you understand that there's nothing Mahomes could have done at the end of the day, right? I mean, even Superman can't save everybody. So, when you look at this for Mahomes and the Super Bowl, right? Some people are not going to put him top 5 simply because he hasn't had a long enough career. And I think that's valid, right? And if you're not going to put him 5, if you put him any lower than 6, I question that, right? Because at this point, you're putting him up there with, I don't know how you can really keep him above Marino much longer, especially with the postseason success that he's had. Elway is going to be ahead of him right now. Joe Montana, Peyton Manning, and Tom Brady are the 3 guys that are above him, right? Those are the 3 guys that are solidified above him, but who are the other 2 guys that you're going to put above him? 3 guys that you're going to put above him, 4 guys you're going to put above him. You're going to put Aaron Rodgers there? Well, okay, Aaron Rodgers has 4 MVPs, but Aaron Rodgers has also been playing since Christ was a child. So compared to Mahomes, so Mahomes has, accomplished in a third of what Aaron Rodgers has done, or third of time of Aaron Rodgers has done, but has accomplished more. 3 Super Bowls, 4 years, worst being an AFC Championship, doesn't, crack under pressure. It's to the point now where it's just, are you willing to get past his career numbers? Because it's a legitimate argument, right? Not having enough passing touchdowns, not having enough games, not having enough this or that. But, at the end of the day, how do we judge quarterbacks? We judge them off of wins, we judge them off the playoffs, and we judge them off the Super Bowl. If he wins, he has 2 of them things, which is a very low class of its own, right? There's very little people in that class, right? Who's been to 3 Super Bowls. That's even less, right? Has 2 MVPs with that, right? So we're excluding freaking Eli Manning at that point. So people could stop trying to use that stupid argument. And then, if you want to go heavily off of Super Bowls, there you go. There's your argument. You want to go off of MVPs? There you go. He's always been a top 3 or 5 quarterback since he started, right? If not number 1, pretty much the last 3 to 4 years. I mean, both years he won the MVP, he's got to be at least top 3. This year, he's definitely number 1, right? His first year as a starter where he won MVP, you could argue that he wasn't number 1. It's tough to argue someone who has 50 touchdown passes to not be the number 1 quarterback in football, but I'd at least adhere to the argument, right? I know the year that he messed up his knee and we ended up winning the Super Bowl is you could say he wasn't top 5, but I mean, any quarterback that, I don't know, dislocates their knees, probably not going to have the best numbers come the end of the year. But besides for that, it really just comes, it's like the Barry Sanders argument, right? That's why some people don't want to put him number 1 because he didn't play short or a long enough career. But Barry Sanders had more first team All Pros and second team All Pros than Walter Payton and Jim Brown, right? And he had more rushing titles. He had more Pro Bowls, right? Or not not rushing titles, but he had more Pro Bowls. He had a 2,000-yard season. So he did in a shorter amount of time what these two other guys did in long career, not Jim Brown, but Walter Payton, did in these long careers, his long career, yet he accomplished more in a shorter amount of time. So what's more impressive, right? Emmitt Smith. I think the other guy, actually, not Jim Brown, it's Emmitt Smith who I referred to. It's Walter Payton and Emmitt Smith that people try to put above Barry Sanders, right? Because they played forever. They have all these long, massive numbers. But at the end of the day, Barry Sanders was the best running back in football out of the 10 years he played, at least 8 years, 8 years. So out of, the 100% of the time he was in the league, 70%, 80% of the time he was the best running back in the league. When how long has Tom Brady been the best quarterback in the NFL? I don't know if he's been number one, all that much. Right? Are you going to put him above Peyton Manning? How many years do you put him above Peyton Manning? How many years do you put him above Aaron Rodgers? How many years do you put him above Patrick Mahomes? How many years do you put him above probably Breeze? You probably put him above Breeze, obviously. But there's
not
I know
a
he
lot,
has,
man.
But exactly. So when you look at the years that they've been in the league, right? I'm also kind of projecting when I put him at top 5. When I put him at, because it's going to be at number 5, right? I'm not putting him at 4. I put him at 5, just because of because I do also respect the longevity portion of it, right? And I got to stay, consistent, because I am a LeBron fan, so I got to kind of stay consistent there. But about the longevity portion, so when it comes to him being top 5, and you compare him against guys like Brady, Manning, who are dominant for so long, you have to consider the amount of time he's been in the league and how much he's dominated in that time. And it's been nothing short of spectacular.
Yeah. And like you said, how many times has Tom Brady been the best quarterback in the league? Out of 20 years, half? If that, I mean, maybe. For the first 4 or 5 years of his career, so the first 4 seasons, he didn't throw over 4,000 yards. You can say, oh, it's different then, but hey, you still had Peyton Manning doing that. You still had other guys throwing for 4,000 yards. Even Drew Brees, before he was Drew Brees on the Saints, he was still doing that. Phillip Rivers, even though Phillip Rivers is the best quarterback, he was still putting up higher numbers at the time. But I mean, with Tom Brady, it's just like you said, the longevity part. So you said,
one big portion that I also give Mahomes is because I've discussed this, I think, with you, some other people, right? Is when you can go back and look at the last 10, 15, 20 years, pick a number, I don't care. Look at all the teams in the Super Bowls. How many of them have had a top 10 defense? And out of the 3 Super Bowls that Mahomes went to, how many top 10 defense has he had?
None.
It rhymes with hero. It's 0, right? So you're taking a team. He's the one quarterback. He's this diamond in the rough out of all the rest of the quarterbacks that are taking non-top 10 defenses to the Super Bowl. Because what do they say? Offense wins games, defense wins championships. Yet he's making it to the championship without a top 10 defense when no one else is doing that. I mean, I can't think of the last team to do it.
And maybe Peyton Manning, but he still had a lot of playmakers on that defensive side of the ball. In 2006.
Once or twice.
So
Mahomes has already done it 3 times in 5 years.
Exactly. And verse right now, it's probably the most parity it was compared to what was back then. I mean, you had Peyton Manning, Roethlisberger, and Brady, Roethlisberger, and Peyton Manning. Outside of that, it was kind of like there was a bit of a drop off. But now it's like the worst quarterback in this generation Mahomes is going to have to go up against is probably like in the playoffs, at least, is Trevor Lawrence. I mean, and that's not saying Trevor Lawrence is bad at all. That's just saying like that's when when you have the Joe Burrows and the all these other quarterbacks that are good. You're all of a sudden it's like, okay, yeah, you had to play against like Trevor Lawrence, and it's like it's no slouch. He's going to have to play against Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Trevor Lawrence, and those guys every single year. And again, you touched on it, the defense. Every year I hear, the Chiefs defense is, it's not good. The Chiefs defense isn't this. The Chiefs defense isn't that. But yeah, there's still people out there who have Josh Allen, a Joe Burrow above Mahomes. He goes and he beats those guys to go to Super Bowls. What's the reason for it? Because Josh Allen has a great defense.
Yeah.
Bengals defense is similar to the Chiefs, maybe a little better, but there has to be a reason why Mahomes is in the AFC Championship and always winning 12 to 13 games every year. It's him.
Yeah.
It's
and
because
then
he is that guy.
there's this notion that I kind of want to put to bed for anybody watching, is people talk about Tom Brady's early career compared to Patrick Mahomes. And the best way I can compare this is similar to Robert Ory to Michael Jordan, right? There's a difference between being in the right place, like Brady was, and being the reason you win. All right. That's Mahomes, right? The reason the Chiefs win is because of Mahomes' play. You could put a lot of quarterbacks in the spot of Tom Brady in his early years before he truthfully became Tom Brady and he won those first 3 Super Bowls.
Right.
I could put probably 50 people in there.
You could put, let's say Drew Brees, or not Drew Brees, I'm sorry, Bledsoe, Patriots fans and Tom Brady, they went to a Super Bowl 3 years before Brady got there. And they played, the Packers down to the wire. And again, we talked about this. It's not necessarily a knock versus Brady. He was learning how to be a quarterback those first 4 years.
For sure.
Until 2006, 2007, that's when he was Brady. That's when he turned into Tom Brady, those first couple of years. And, obviously 07 is when he got a bigger offense. But after, the Randy Moss left, like those early parts of his year, probably when he had one of the better offenses, especially in the run game. And he had good receivers. Was it Troy Brown? He had Deion Branch. He had good players. It's just, again, he was not Tom Brady yet. They had a system in place. Tom Brady gets some points on the board, scored 24 to 21 points. The defense will do the rest. And I agree with you. It's the difference between being the reason why you win the championship and just being on the team that won the championship. So moving on to our last segment here, something fun, as we talked about Tom Brady, the QB carousel, the Kansas City Chiefs, and of course, we'll get our final predictions before the show ends here. But what are your top 3 bowls? I saw this, of course, on the New Heights podcast. But what are your top 3 bowls? Anything that's a bowl, because we are in Super Bowl week. So what are your top 3 bowls? Anything that is a bowl.
I saw this video too, where it was like 10 different names with a bowl in it. God, for the life of me, I can't remember what any of them were. Number 1 has to be Super Bowl for me. I'm a huge football fan. I've played football for a good portion of my life, so I'd have to go Super Bowl. I think nothing could beat a cereal bowl. Growing up, that's all you ate in the morning was cereal. So cereal bowl.
What's your go-to? The people got to know. You're waking up. You're 10 years old. You have any selection? What's your go-to?
At 10 years old, Fruity Pebbles. What you talking about?
Fruity Pebbles.
Fruity Pebbles, bro. I don't know what it was. It's so strange.
So cereal bowl.
I got to think of some other bowls. I guess. I don't know. I don't know any other bowl names off the top of my head.
You got
Rose Bowl. Rose Bowl.
Okay, Rose Bowl.
That has to be 3rd. Yeah.
The Rose Bowl is good for the college football fans, for the Rose Bowl. So cereal bowl, it's got to be the what was it? It's got to be the Cocoa Puffs. No, you said
Fruity Pebbles, bro.
At
10 years old. At 10 years old, bro.
Give me some Fruity Pebbles. That was on the table. So then what is this? You're walking into Super Bowl party. These 3 items are not on the table or not at the Super Bowl party. You're walking out. What are your 3 go-to? It could be 5 too. What is your 3 go-to at a Super Bowl party? They have to have this.
Some sort of like bean bags, like cornhole, something like that. Some
All
sort
right.
of
Okay,
some
that's
sort
a
of
good
game.
one. We haven't heard that one yet.
Some sort of game, right? Like you could throw like a beer pong in there. I don't drink, so I really don't care for that. But like some sort of game, right? Number 2 would have to be nachos. I don't know what it is. I have this weird obsession with nachos. And then 3rd, I think let's go old fashioned, just a football. How can you not have a football party without a football being there to throw around?
Just tossing it around.
For sure.
I think everyone on the podcast so far has said nachos. That's a big one. I'm going to make sure I have nachos at the Super Bowl party, because seeming like everyone's saying nachos, you got to have nachos at what's your toppings if you got to have toppings on your nachos? What are you putting on it? Obviously cheese.
Well, yeah, and then like bacon bits, like those little bacon
Like
bit
little
things.
bacon
Yeah,
bits,
yeah, yeah, yeah. And then I'm not a spicy guy, so I don't do jalapenos. So
jalapenos.
I wouldn't put that on my list, but I know that's a popular one. Salsa, right? Your uh
Right on.
yeah, stuff like that.
Yeah, you got to have your bacon bits, your salsa. You're ready to go for your Super Bowl party. So this is the big moment. Got to have your final take. What is, you're in the locker room. You're trying the, you're in the locker room with some other Chiefs fans. You're trying to get them ready to go for this Super Bowl. You may not even have the Chiefs winning, but let the Chiefs fans know what your prediction is, how you think the game's going to go. Give me your prediction, your storyline out of the Super Bowl.
So I got this in the mail the other day, right? And it's a script, right? So
He got
I
the
got the
script.
script. I
Roger
brought the
called you.
script.
He didn't call me, man.
Facts, right?
Dude, Roger
Andy Reid
sent you.
gave me a call. Brett Veach gave me a call. They all gave me a call. So and
Dang.
they even faxed it to me. We went old fashioned, right? Andy Reid doesn't
Did
know
they
how to use
laminate
email.
it and everything?
No, they didn't laminate it. But Andy Reid doesn't know how to use email, so he faxed it to me. But so I got the Chiefs, or not.
You got to read out the script.
It says Chiefs take an early lead, 10-0, and then the Eagles will come back 10-7, and then from there, the game was going to end about 30-27. It's going to be a one-score game.
30-27, and is that Chiefs or Eagles? I'm guessing Chiefs. Kansas City Chiefs. Who is your X factor in the game? Who is your MVP of the game? And who's your defensive player of the game?
MVP's Mahomes. That's just kind of a given, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to give it to the quarterback. Defensive player of the game is going to be Nick Bolton. And the offensive player of the game is going to be Kadarius Toney.
Okay. Kadarius, I like it. He's been a little banged up, but this is time to shine. We know that the Eagles corners, they like to play very up and aggressive. So this is maybe the time where you get a deep shot from MVS or Kadarius. So love to see that. So before we get out of here, tell everyone where they can reach you. If it's social media, where is it? Where can the people keep up with you?
So the main ones that I post on is on TikTok. It's Sports Talk Debate. It's just all one word. And then I actually just started a Facebook page. It actually gets a lot better outreach. It's my first name, Lawrence, and then it's just Sports Talk. It's just a normal page, and I post reels and only reels onto that. As it progresses, it will have more diverse content. It won't. The TikTok content and the Facebook content will start to kind of differ. But as of right now, it's a lot of the same stuff. So whatever you go onto either one, you'll get similar content on both. And then I also have an Instagram that is connected on my TikTok page.
So find them, guys, on TikTok. I go on there almost every night. And there's tons of people on there. We talk about NBA, MLB, NFL, college football. We had an awesome talk about the college Super League. It's fun on there. So guys, go check out his videos as well on there. And the Facebook, I'm going to go check that out. So make sure you guys go check that out. Appreciate you coming on the show, man. I really do love having you on here. Hopefully we have you on again after the Super Bowl for a 37-27 win.
30-27.
Yeah, 30-27. That was it.
Yep.
30-27. You said Nick Bolton as your defensive player of the game. Hopefully that's the case. He shuts down the run game. Any final thoughts you want to tell the Kansas City Chiefs fans before Sunday? Because you're going to be the last person on the TPT podcast before the Super Bowl. Anything you want to tell the Chiefs fans before we go?
Yes. We've been hearing a lot of NFL's rigged, right? It's your team versus the refs. Unless we have a situation where it's like the Rams versus the Saints, where it's like literally the worst blown call in NFL history, do not say it's the officiating, right?
I know Carl Sheffer is going to be there and everything.
Sometimes you just get outplayed, right? Sometimes you just get beat. Okay, sometimes the other team is just a better team that day. So and even at that, right? Ray Lewis said it best. The refs cannot beat us. Even in that game with the Saints versus the Rams, who had the ball first in overtime with a chance to win the game?
Right.
The Saints did. And Drew Brees did not capitalize with that Saints squad. So everyone wants to blame the refs, in which it was the worst call in NFL history. Don't get me wrong. Worst blown call ever. But at the same time, they had a chance to win. The refs
Right.
cannot beat you to a certain extent. Unless they're throwing 20, 30 penalties, you have 60 plays in a game. You can't let 2 or 3 beat you.
Right.
So at the end of the day, the best team will win.
Best team will win. Lawrence, thank you so much for being on the show again. We'll hope to see you after the Super Bowl for a win on the Kansas City Chiefs. That'll do it here on the TPT podcast, guys. We will see you on hopefully a victory Super Bowl Monday.
Thanks for watching. Make sure you guys hit that notification bell, follow us on all social media, and check out our videos each week.